And welcome into the Tuesday edition of Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. Hope everybody's having a fantastic start to their day today. Joe Rexrode, good morning. How are you? What's going on?
Doing fine. Nothing.
That's good. Nick Keyser, how we doing? How's life?
I'm good. Finish some of our planning for a couple days away.
Boy.
So excited for that.
It's getting real.
Made a playlist, so that's fun.
Wow.
So we're talking honeymoon now?
I guess if you want to. But
I don't want to go.
no, I didn't say you were going.
Okay.
You just asked.
He's finishing the list up for – we're talking playlist for like the wedding, the reception.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with
Oh,
you.
the playlist for the reception.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I
Yes.
thought you were saying the playlist for the honeymoon.
Meanwhile, you're probably whipping up a good diss for D-Mace, right?
A diss track?
diss.
Yeah. No Vaseline.
Could that happen? A diss
No, we
track?
don't need to go that. And, we don't need to be that severe. But, man,
People are really mad at you.
I know. Don't even know what I said. Not sure other people know what I
Guys.
said.
I don't think J.C. Latham has the body type of a tackle. Doesn't mean he can't play left tackle, but he just looks like a big guy. And now everybody's all over you, all over Jared,
Right.
lumping you together, which is my favorite.
We're gonna have to sort that out at some point today. It's enough being lumped in with Jared on various arguments.
There's a lot of that going around.
Yeah, it's quite enough.
We got a lot to get into today on the program. Caroline Fenton will join us for her weekly visit at 7 o'clock. John Glennon at 8 o'clock from the Nashville Post will join us. We'll get into the Titans and the Predators with him, so looking forward to all that. Taking your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025 on our phone and text lines, which as always are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe, I was looking at the grid last night, our show grid of which we spend many hours planning, our pre-show meeting, and it said Joe wants to start on the Admirals in the first segment. And I thought that maybe Nick Keyser had hijacked the grid and put your name in place of it. But no, it's you. You want to start on the Milwaukee Admirals.
I mean, I just don't. I feel like we haven't been talking about the Admirals.
We haven't.
Why have we not been covering the Admirals? I see all these people who cover the Preds, follow the Preds.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just Admirals. It's amazing. I mean, thank goodness the Preds are out of the playoffs.
So we
So they can get the hell out of the way and people can focus on what really matters, the Milwaukee Admirals. The Admirals are interesting, though, in all
They are.
seriousness. First of all, they came back from what, down 2-0
Yep.
to beat Texas.
in a 5-game series.
Five-game
yep,
series.
They're on the brink of elimination. Yep.
And there's a couple things. Wait a minute. I'm looking at this. Nick takes a shot of Jack? What?
Yeah, now he has hijacked the grid.
Oh, okay.
I read what you said last night on the grid, and I was just mentally preparing myself, and I was just making a mental note. Not that I would actually do that, but anyway,
So did you take a shot of Jack last night?
no.
That Bachelor weekend still hanging
Okay.
over, man.
It says on our grid, for people who don't know or are totally confused right now, but it's first segment. It says Nick takes a shot of Jack in preparation
It's
to be bitched
facetious.
at. Okay. I don't have any complaints about you. I will say, although I see more from Nick in the notes here that Zach LaRue is
LaRue.
a story you've got here
LaRue.
later on. So a couple things. Okay, so there you go. So there's two things that I find interesting. One, I do think he's interesting. And two, God dang it, I got to join Jared in another take.
Oh, boy.
But I got to say, you're not going to play Askarov anymore? I mean, I know it's so important that the Admirals win, and so Troy Grosnick gets in there and gets it done, but this isn't about developing players?
I hear you. Now, look, it's playoffs. So, like, when you get to the playoffs, like, Carl Taylor's job right now is to win. So, like, I don't have any problem. Like, if I would be upset if they got through the whole thing and Askarov didn't get back in there, I doubt very seriously that Troy Grosnick is going to win every single game from here on out. So while he's on the heater, I don't mind leaving him in there. But when they lose, I'd put Askarov back in there. That'd be probably the way I'd handle it.
His job is to win?
I mean, they're in the playoffs.
Okay.
I mean, you develop all season long, right?
Uh-huh.
You don't think his job is to win right now?
I mean, of course you want to win right now. You want winning to be part of the routine.
You don't think they're trying to win the Calder Cup down there?
You'd rather win than lose.
Right.
But the minor leagues is about developing players for the big club.
I hear you. And Barry Trotz will tell you a way to do that is to win in the playoffs.
And the most important prospect on that team is not playing.
I hear you.
So, I'm uncomfortable because I did hear Jared gripe it, but now, of course, he takes it so far. He takes it too far. Like, if Barry Trotz, I'd call him up and fire. It's like, all right.
I saw that.
You have to take it too far. But I must say, like, okay, he's on a heater. That's fine. And we don't know all the circumstances of Askarov being taken out. Probably some of his, I guess, overflowing emotion.
Well, he wasn't playing well, and he took a horrendous penalty.
Took a bad penalty. But, like, okay, so if Grosnick stays on a heater, so if they just keep winning, then you're never going to put in the one of the most important people in this entire franchise?
I don't know. Like, what do you think that they should go back to Askarov for Game 1 of the next series? I mean,
yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, Grosnick just won 3 in a row.
I mean, that's awesome. Good. Thank you, Troy. Good job. I mean, you and
I would love to
Giannis
see
and the
Askarov
Brewers
back in
bullpen are all very important in Nashville.
I would love to see Askarov back in there. There's no question. I'm just saying, like, I don't know why people are freaking out about this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not freaking out. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like I'd like to see how he responds now to being benched. I'd like to see how he responds to the whole situation. I'm good for Troy Grosnick, okay? No offense to Troy Grosnick, but like whatever he does is just great. Thank you. I mean, good for you, man. And the guys probably rally around him. It's a great feel-good story for him, but it has no impact on the Nashville Predators.
No, there's no doubt about that. It has no impact on the Nashville Predators.
Askarov, good, bad, indifferent, at least being active, does.
I would like to see him back in there. I would like to see him back in there. I'd like to see how he responds. I think people, i.e. Willie, are making way too much of his struggles down the stretch here as to, like, what that means for the goaltending conversations. Like, he's not ready for next year. Okay. Was he ever going to be ready for next year to be the starting goaltender? I don't know how we've gotten to that being such a big deal and why that's like that's the reason you got to sign a goaltender to a contract. But, I do think there are clearly things that he's got to learn. And the penalty that Askarov took in game, I guess that was 2, was funny, but it's not funny like if you're Barry Trotz, and it's not funny if you're Carl Taylor, and like you can't do stuff like that in the NHL. So I have no problem with them benching him and trying to get him to learn a lesson from that.
Yep.
Now at some point, you probably need to put him back in and see how he responds. And the other part of that is, like, I still think he's your best goalie, right? Like, he's better than Troy Grosnick is. So,
I mean, if not, then I tip my cap to Willie. And the only argument I'd say with Willie is I don't even want him backing up Saros if that's the situation. Right. It's like, okay, I get the frustration. Again, we don't know all the conversations or all that went on. So I think it's a little bit of a lesson, which is great. But you're going to put the kid, you're just going to just have a seat for, we'll see it. We'll see you next training camp. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not saying you handle him with kid gloves. There is a little bit of a difference, though, with Russian players, right? I mean, in terms of, like, they do have options that maybe players from other countries don't.
Yeah.
In theory. And I don't know. I feel like this is actually a good opportunity to find something out about him.
I can see that. Look, I expect he's going to get back in there at some point in his playoff run.
I'll count on that.
I mean, maybe it's not game 1. I expect he's going to be back in there at some point. If he doesn't, then I'm with you. I would be very disappointed by that.
Seen enough.
If he doesn't get back in there at some point during this postseason for them, I would be upset by that. There's no question.
But hey, I mean, if Troy Grosnick leads them to a Calder Cup, what's the parade route in Nashville?
Well, I mean, they got a lot of your young guys winning a championship at that point. Barry Trotz would take it probably.
Yeah, including your most important prospect cheering from the bench.
You can watch Troy Grosnick, and you learn what it takes to be a serial winner and a pro at this level. Troy Grosnick will tell you. That's what you got. What you got to do.
Is he a serial winner?
He could, if he wins a championship, he will be. He'll become one right before our very eyes.
I don't like serial anything in Milwaukee. It just
throws you off a little bit.
Yeah.
615-737-1025. Our phone number is 615-737-1025. By the way, Zach in Nashville. I can't wait for Joe and Jared to continue their tour of body-shaming players and look at Cheeto in pads today and say, oh, man, he has the body type of a right corner, not a left cornerback. Thank you, Zach.
Yeah. Thank you, Zach. I'll get to this at 7:45. He looks like a right tackle is stupid commentary. That doesn't make any sense. Stupid. He looks like a guard is not stupid commentary, and I'm not saying he's a guard.
People are very mad at you.
Save it. I'll save it.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll have more on the Preds coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We are broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Joe, you mentioned the Admirals. Zach LaRue, first-round pick of the Nashville Predators, having a heck of a postseason so far down there. And you start to think about, if you're a Predators fan, some potential answers that could be coming from the minor leagues. I think he's certainly on the list. Like Zach LaRue, I said this the other day. I don't know that the Predators have anybody down there that is going to be like a upper crust elite player. I think Zach LaRue can be a really good player. I think Svechkov has a chance to be a good player. I think Kemmel, we'll see. Kemmel has some elite traits. Now, he's also 20. Like, I think he just turned 20. So I still think he's probably a little bit away. But LaRue is turning some heads down there in the AHL. He's come up with some big goals, especially when they were down 0-2 in the series. He kind of willed them back into that series, and they won. And you're talking about a guy that plays with a lot of edge. There was, in junior, some probably mistakes that he made, some unfortunate decisions that he made in terms of getting suspended and playing kind of on the edge, those sorts of things. But you could tell that Zach LaRue could be a player that once he makes it to the NHL has a chance to become one of those like fan favorite type guys with the way that he plays the game.
Yeah.
Barry Trotz loves him.
Yeah, some Preds fans have thrown the name Brad Marchand out in relation to him, and it's like, well, yeah. I mean, I get the comparison in terms of
It's a heck of a bar.
Yeah, but I don't. You can't expect that level of player, but maybe you can expect that type of player, right? But maybe he's one of those guys who, like you said, he had some big time goals in this postseason for the most important postseason run in Nashville, the Milwaukee Admirals postseason run, but seriously. Maybe he's one of those guys who you do get some depth scoring out of him, and you get like some sandpaper, and so there's some excitement with that.
He had 19 goals in the regular season, 48 points, 66 games. Like I said, when you're looking down the kind of the pipeline here, and you're trying to figure out those next guys, like who can be a part of the group. That's why, like, in some of their unrestricted free agents, I was a little surprised at the end of season press conference to hear Barry Trotz talk the way that he did about some of their guys. Like, to me, and this is just me, like Kiefer Sherwood is a nice player, and Kiefer Sherwood did some good things for the Predators this year. Like, I think you should be looking to replace Kiefer Sherwood with guys like Zach LaRue, like guys that you have in your pipeline. I think you should be leaving spots open for those guys to go take the job. And if they don't take it, then you can find some other players to plug in there. But, like, the Jason Zucker part of this, the Anthony Beauvillier, like bringing guys back, it all sounds great in theory. But the only question I have when you start doing stuff like that is, are you blocking some upward mobility for some of your younger players? Like, this roster has to get younger. It has to. And if it doesn't, you're not going to like the results here the next year or two. Like, you're just not. Like, you've got to find a way to get younger here. And he talked about that later in the press conference. But, like, those two things to me don't really add up. Like, wanting to bring back all the veteran players and also wanting to get younger at the same time. Like, something's got to give there, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, that's why I didn't consider gospel what he said about Saros, because he said, yeah, we want to bring everybody back. We all know you can't. And those two things don't go together. So when you say you want to sign a long-term deal with Saros, it doesn't mean you will. That it'll happen.
Right.
For multiple reasons it might not happen. But I'm with you. A guy like Sherwood really, really was a heck of a – I mean, just –
yeah, he played well.
Yeah. But, like, what if you had someone maybe with a little bit more scoring touch who also is on an entry-level deal? That is sort of the idea, right?
Yeah.
And then they can maybe move up or whatever. I mean, it's obviously important to have guys like Sherwood and a lot of those guys were very effective this year, especially down the stretch. I think with a big part of their success. So you can't just dismiss that and say, just put someone else in there. Like they were effective. But I'm with you. Like not every one of these young guys obviously is going to be in a prominent spot in this lineup, but they should get a chance to be in the lineup somewhere.
Well, and LaRue is a guy specifically with him that I feel like can challenge for a spot next year. Like everybody's talking about Kimmel. Kimmel's not ready. Like I think Kimmel is really young, and you look at the year that he had. I mean, there was every now and then there'd be a flash of, man, what a shot, or what a play he made out there. It was really good to see. But overall, like the production would tell you that he still needs some more time in the minors. Like he ended up with 16 goals, 41 points, 67 games. It's not bad, but at like 20 years old, I could see him probably needing some more time next year in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So like LaRue is a more realistic, I think, threat to make the team out of camp next year would be the way I would put it.
That makes sense. Yeah, like Evangelista, some would want to make the comparison of like Kimmel next year with Evangelista this year. I think there's another year probably. Like Kimmel could be like a call-up next year.
Agreed. Yeah.
And then hopefully for the Preds, he would follow a similar trajectory.
Yeah. And then there's the other two, like Parsonen. Is he making the team out of camp? Tomasino. Is he making the team out of camp? Like there's a lot of guys fighting for not very many spots right now. It's like especially if you brought back a Sherwood, well, how many spots you got? Like there's not very many spots left.
Wasn't it essentially Sherwood who 2 years ago beat Tomasino out for a spot, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that basically what it was?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
Starting
Though. It's
in the
like,
top
here
six.
you go. Yeah. And people were mad, and I understand. But that's the thing. It's just such a huge summer certainly for Tomasino. Because that's another thing with, like, what was said at that presser that bothers me a little bit. Like how some people, and Jared's one of them, took it as, well, Brunette said he's done with Tomasino.
Yeah.
All right. No, he challenged him. Now, I have no idea if Tomasino can respond to that. He certainly made it clear that, like, either he responds or then
He's not going to play.
right,
Yeah.
he's not going to play. But the first part of the quote was they like expressing belief and some positivity about him. It's a challenge.
It's a challenge, and look, the whole roster right now, like they're in a really interesting spot because I mean they did score. This is one of the best offensive teams in the history of the franchise. A lot of that is due to Nyquist being amazing. Forsberg scoring 48 goals. Yossi put up over 80 points. And then O'Reilly playing really well. Like, they got some scoring beyond that, but not anywhere that was overly consistent. So I think you can look at it and say, well, we were a great offensive team last year. Best offensive team maybe in the history of the franchise. It's like, well, yes, but, like, you have to add to it. Like, you can't just assume that next year, Gus Nyquist had 75 points last year, so he's going to come back and do that again. Philip Forsberg, by the way, stayed healthy all 82 games, played, scored 48 goals. He's going to do that again. Ryan O'Reilly played all 82 games, healthy, and is going to do that again. Like, I think there's got to be some recognition here that you've got to find whatever that next wave is of some secondary scoring. Your young guys, to me, have got to be a part of it. Like, you got to identify some guys in your system right now beyond whatever you do in free agency. But you got to identify some guys in your system right now that could come supplement that next year.
Right. And that's probably part of the Brunette quote about might get bumpy next year.
Yeah.
It's like you can't expect that. You can't count on that again. So where's the compensation coming from? When that inevitably somebody gets hurt more, or maybe Nyquist gets moved, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's there's no way, I think. Yeah, I think there's no way that you're going to get the exact same level of production from those three guys.
It would be very difficult. Now, Forsberg, look, if Forsberg stays healthy, that's right around what Forsberg is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe it's not 48 goals, maybe it's 42, maybe it's 40. Maybe instead of 90 points, it's 85. That's what he is. Like, if he can stay healthy, I think that's the player that he's developed into. Nyquist at age 35 is the one where it's like, all right, it was great. He deserves all the credit in the world for playing the way he did. He was a perfect fit with those two guys. At age 35, is he going to be able to do that again? Like when he's never done it before in his career, that's the one where it's got to be like, all right, there's got to be a little bit of realism, I think, heading into that next year. Mike from Nashville on the text line says, this is the same issue when Poyle was general manager and Trotz was head coach. A roster full of roster fillers and a farm system full of more roster fillers. We'll see.
That's a little bit pessimistic.
The one thing I will say is, I mean, they do have a ton of first-round picks down there right now, from Kimmel to Svechkov to LaRue, Tomasino. They got a lot of first-round – Oskarov. A lot of first-round picks down there right now. And you would hope – and it's not going to be all of those guys. I can tell you right now. Not all of those guys are going to be, like, impactful players for your roster. But could you get 2 of them? Could you get 3 of them to be maybe not superstar players, but really impactful pieces on your roster? And can that happen sometime in the next year, 2 years? That would be ideal for the Predators. They need some of that beyond the current draft picks that they have coming up.
Yeah, so maybe LaRue is the guy who kind of passes some of these guys like Tomasino and Parson and carves out early. That'd be a good story for the Preds to have someone like that, because I'm not saying Tomasino and Parson can't become much better players. I definitely buy into when you're that young, you can get better. But I also, I go back to Ellie Tolvanen, there was a little bit of how much did he really change as a player over 3 years?
Right.
Not a ton,
Well, and I think it's fair to call this season a disappointment for Parson and Tomasino, right?
Yeah.
Like they started with the team.
I mean, Parson starts on the top line.
Yeah, they did not finish with the team. And both of them, to varying degrees, have gone down to Milwaukee and have played well. So it's not like they just phoned it in when they got down there. So that's good. Like, I would hope that would be the case. But you would hope that they figured things out a little bit quicker. And I mean, it feels like we've been having this conversation about Tomasino for like 3 years. So at some point it's got to turn into something, or you got to move on.
I mean, there's definitely some Tolvanen shades with him.
A little bit.
It comes to mind a little bit.
Yep, a little bit. 615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts on the Preds coming up next. We'll also get back into the goalie gate that Willie Donnet keeps bringing out charts and numbers and flow sheets
another text,
and all this other stuff. We'll get more into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan today as the Nashville Sounds take on the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp on the road. Pre-game at 5:50, first pitch at 6:05. Coverage available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Sounds Baseball presented by Twin Peaks, Family Leisure, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. The Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. One of the best names in sports.
That's a very good name. UC Santa Cruz Banana Slugs is better, but pretty good.
It's pretty good. Pretty good stuff. Taking your thoughts on the Preds, 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. The UC Saros discussion still alive and well. Willie has brought to our attention over the weekend several different sheets that he's filled out. Apparently he filled out another one yesterday, but he never really sent it to us. That's okay. He talked about it on the radio. I was listening. So there's the first-round draft pick part of this where, Askarov, obviously a first-round pick by the Predators. You look around the league, there's not a ton of first-round picks at goalie that are playing right now. I think the number is 5, if I remember correctly from Willie. There are 6 undrafted free agents. Now, part of that is teams don't really draft goaltenders in the first round. Like, it very, very rarely happens. Like, it doesn't happen very often. So there's that you got to factor
the Preds
into
did
as well. But the Predators did. Some other teams have to. Obviously, Vasilevsky was the first-round pick. Marc-Andre Fleury, first-round pick. I think Jake Ottinger was the first-round pick. So it happens, but it's not a very common thing that takes place. And then there's the other part of this as well that Willie was talking about, the salary cap. So let's say UC Saros signs an 8-year deal worth $8 million per season. That would be less percentage of the cap than the deal that Pekka Rinne signed back in 2011 when he signed a 7-year deal worth $7 million per season. I think when Pekka signed that deal, it was roughly 11% of the cap. And based on where the cap is right now, Saros would be like around 8 or something like that. And then it would conceivably go down as you move forward there from there. So what do you make of that part of it in terms of the percentage of the cap, assuming that it's 8 years, $8 million, and that's just kind of the ballpark figure? What do you make of that part of it? If that's the way things go here for Saros, do you feel better about it since it's a less percentage of the cap than Pekka took up back in the day?
Yeah. It was Pekka's – it's not a huge difference. Was Pekka's deal at the time, was that the biggest goalie deal when he signed it?
I think so, but I'd have to go back and
still
look.
That's not a great inflation rate, for like who's tops now? What's Vasilevsky?
He's 9.5 per year.
He's 9.5. He's at tops.
Yeah.
It's not great inflation for players in this league, and I know that like COVID tripped it up and stuff like that, but still,
it's kind of gone. It's nobody signed that Shea Whipper contract anymore either. Like the contracts are a little bit different now. It's tough to find. Yep.
So yeah, sure, it's a little less of the cap. That's fine. There's still a lot of other things you could do with that. Obviously, it's like if you have an Askarov, if he's good, if he's up to it soon, maybe not. Maybe he'll never play again in Milwaukee. I mean, I don't know. Got to win that Calder Cup. But because Troy Grosnick will deliver it to you. I don't know why Grosnick has to
He's
take
catching
shots
some strays
today.
from you this morning.
Yeah, I know.
Man.
I have nothing against Troy Grosnick. Although I'm saying Grosnick and you're saying Grosnick. You confident?
I think it's Grosnick.
Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize. Saying his name wrong and taking unnecessary shots at him. But if Askarov is the guy you think he is, that's the whole thing. It's okay. You can have that, and you can have a backup, and then sure, the $8 million AAV is less of a percentage of the cap than it would have been or used to be, and the cap's going up and all that. But okay, take that to the scenario with that low level of pay for goaltenders, and what can you do with the rest of your roster?
Yep.
Feels to me like every dollar matters in this league with a hard cap.
The one thing that I think we got to get past, and John in Thompson Station brings this up, says Willie keeps making the debate Saros versus Askarov. I think the argument is that you want to be locked into Saros for 8 years at $8 million instead of using that money on forwards.
Right.
I would prefer Lankinen or another veteran and Askarov or Grosnick as backup. Get more Troy Grosnick talking there.
Grosnick to Nashville. He wins the Calder Cup. Bring him in, baby. Starter.
Yeah, maybe so. But yeah, like Willie keeps talking about, like, who's your starter next year if you move on from Saros. Like, go find a starter. Like, it's 1 year.
Yeah.
It's not some long-term plan. It would be, in a perfect world next season, whoever you got. I threw out the other day Laurent Brossoit from Winnipeg, who's been very good as their backup goalie.
That was a good pull by you in that discussion.
And you could go with that and then have Askarov be the backup. And is that going to be as good of a goaltending situation as you're in right now? Probably not. But, like, in my world, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay if I'm the Predators taking maybe a little bit of a step back next year, if that means that you find your goaltender of the future moving forward here. Like, I don't think Willie has much time for that, which is fine. Like, if you don't want to take a step back next year, I get it.
I mean, Willie's got to call every game, so
yeah,
there's a little different experience.
Yeah, like, I get it.
If you're him,
I get it. Like, you want, in a perfect world, you want to keep building on this year. I just have my doubts about how well you can do that given the age of this roster right now.
It just if the priority, if the list of priorities includes, and it's high on the list, is like you can't take a step back, you have to keep winning next year, is what can you do next year? If that's always your mindset, I think sometimes you miss out on an opportunity to get quite a bit better, which again would be if Askarov works out, if you can have that situation, if he can be ready. There's a lot of ifs as a part of it for sure. Again, it's a risk without question. But if those things work out for you, then that's more flexibility to address what badly needs to be addressed. I get the argument that Willie has made to us in these endless text threads. I mean, I get the point of, if you have a great player, wherever the great player is, and you have that great player, lock up the great player. I get that idea. I don't think this is some huge. I mean, this is a good debate because it's close. It's not. There's no simple, obvious answer to me, except I just think that the worst possibility is having both of them and having them both around and not getting some kind of assets out of one of them, just because you are so lacking in other areas.
Well, and here's the thing that I think sometimes gets lost in this discussion. It's about what is the best path to winning a championship, right? If you feel like the best path to winning a championship is signing UC Saros, if you're Barry Trotz, then okay, do that. If you feel like, but I think asking the question of, like, would it be a better path? Like, would you be better off in terms of your pursuit of winning a championship and being a perennial threat to win a championship by going a different route and allocating your money elsewhere and hoping that the first-round pick that you have in goalie eventually turns into the player that you think he's going to be? And I almost have to brace myself for what I'm about to say because people are going to run with it. And just hear me out. Everybody would agree, I would think, that Pekka Rinne was worth the 7-year, $7 million per year contract, right? Like, he's the best player in franchise history. He was worth it. Like, he played really well throughout that stretch. How many times during that stretch did the Predators get past the second round of the playoffs? One time.
We know that they've only done it once ever, so
they got past it one time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's Pekka Rinne's fault. I'm not saying that it was a mistake to sign him to a contract. What I am saying is go back and look at some of those teams. Not very much offensive talent on some of those teams. They did not do a great job always of surrounding him with players that could help out in some of those situations. And I heard Willie say yesterday, like, back in 2016, 2017, 2018, like the golden age of the Predators here, those teams had everything. They did not have everything. They did not have elite forwards, which has been the story of this franchise. Philip Forsberg was a good player then. He was not an elite player. Ryan Johansson was not an elite player. Victor Arvidsson was not an elite player. They did not have elite forwards back then. So I'm just saying, like, everybody would agree.
But then their counter to that is, and they still won the President's Trophy and got to the Stanley Cup Final.
Exactly. And then they got to a series against Winnipeg where they could have used probably an elite forward, right? Like, they didn't have it. So I'm just saying, everybody would agree signing Pekka Rinne was a good move, and it worked out well. And Saros could be the same thing. But overall, with your team's success, is it the best path? Like, there's a scenario where Saros is worth the money that you pay him, but it also does not lead to team success. It does not lead to winning a championship, and that is the goal.
Yeah, well, I think there's obviously big differences, right? I mean, it was a no-brainer at the time to sign Pecorino, right?
For sure.
Like you said, it did work.
There's nobody else coming up either.
And you did get within 2 wins of winning the Cup. So you're right. They didn't have the elite. I mean, I think you could use that and say, see, when you have probably the best D-core in the league, and you have a goalie playing like that, and you did. Johansson, as we've talked about, that was the absolute peak of his career. So you felt like you had a number 1 center for a couple of years there, right? Like really,
in that playoff run, yes.
And even I don't remember his
55,
numbers.
60 points. It's not a number 1 center.
Yeah. I mean, it's matchup wise in the playoffs. He was doing the job.
Yeah, he played great in the playoffs.
I mean, at least that whole thing came together to a team that was good enough to win it. The question here is, okay, where's that? How do you get there?
Again, that's what I'm saying. Like, we all agree Pecorino was worth the money, worth the contract. The fact of the matter is, during that entire run, they got past the second round of the playoffs 1 time. So, like, if you're Barry Trotz, you're looking to say, how can we get past the second round in the next 10 years? Like, 4 times.
Sure.
Like, that would be the goal, right?
And I would not say abandoning goalie is the way to do it. The way to do it is to make better choices than this organization has at forward.
Correct.
Historically.
And
how do you do that?
615-737-1025 is our phone number. More of your thoughts on the Preds coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We'll be joined by Caroline Fenton coming up at 7 o'clock. Get her thoughts on the UC Saros situation, the Titans. I feel like we need to be like a support group for Caroline. She just gets attacked all day on her show about the UC Saros thing. We're with her.
Yeah.
We're Team Caroline.
We stand with Caroline and, I guess, Jared. But also, at least yesterday they took a break from them ganging up on her on Saros for D-Mace to
go after you.
lump me with Jared.
A 9-minute run.
Thank you. See, it always works. It always works.
James on the text line brings up, and I'm glad he brought this up because there's something I want to hit on this. I'm not understanding why everybody thinks that it needs to be one or the other. Bring up Askarov, extend Saros, and let him be a backup for a year or two until they feel he's ready. How long was Saros Pekka's backup? We've gone through the difference.
We haven't discussed this thing at all.
We've gone through the difference between the backup situations. Like, there's a difference between Saros being the backup when Pekka's 34 and nearing the end of his career than Saros at age 29.
And Saros was also not a massive prospect. He turned into a hell of a player.
Yes, there's that.
Askarov comes with a different thing from the start.
Well, the other part of this that it just feels like nobody's talking about, let's say they do that. Let's say they bring up Askarov and they feel like, oh, he's ready. Like they get a year or two down the road with him in the backup, and they say, all right, he's ready. Okay, so what are you doing with Saros? At that point, he's got 6 or 7 years left on his deal. And everybody said, well, you could just trade Saros then. What? How many teams do you think are lining up to take on a 7-year contract for a goalie paying $8 million a year that's 31 years old? Like, do you think that that's going to happen?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think you're getting for that?
I mean, yeah. Now, granted,
I think we're doing a little bit presumptuous to assume that people will just be lining up to trade for UC Saros 2 years into the deal.
Yeah. Now, right now, if they trade for UC Saros, then they are still signing up for signing him to a deal like that, right? So, I guess there's not a huge
what
difference
if he doesn't play
other
very
than
well the next 2 years.
Right. Well, there's that for sure.
People just seem to discount that as a possibility. He's literally coming off his worst year as a pro right now. So what if that's what he is the next 2 years, where he's good but not great? Nobody's taking that contract if that happens.
I'm with you. You know, right now, you can look at this year with a new system and how much better and more Saros like he was in the second half. And I think he was mostly very good in the playoffs. He still ends up with a 900, you know, in the first round, which isn't anything to write home about. But you could take that and say, okay, well, he always slow starts, but last year was a special situation, so he's still the same player. But you look at the overall numbers, like you said, it's his worst year as a pro. And I'll say it until he proves me wrong. And again, I'm not saying I think this is happening for sure, but I do think that it's possible that his style doesn't go as deep into his 30s as some other goalies who are bigger. I may be wrong, but I don't think you can discount that because he's a twitchy athlete who needs to be to compensate for the lack of size. He's
incredibly explosive.
Yeah.
He's incredibly explosive, which is what makes him great, right? Like
yeah. So at 33, is he still that? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm sure he's going to do everything possible. Again, he's like Willie has said. You can't ask for a better pro or someone who's going to do all the right things. And you know, we think back to like Pecorine in his last few years, talking about he was eating kale instead of ice cream and all this stuff. I'm sure Saros will follow the same.
I'm sure he will.
Path, but it is when you're that little, then you have to be explosive.
You have to be explosive, and maybe he will be. Like, look,
sure,
there is, and I've tried to make this clear from the start. And again, I said this the other day. I almost feel bad with how this discussion has played out because it kind of sounds like the more you get into it,
we basically
the more that I'm just like hating on UC Saros. There's absolutely a scenario where the Predators sign UC Saros to an 8-year contract, and it works out great. Like, he plays great. Maybe not for all 8 of them, but for 6. Like, he's really, really good.
Yeah, that's fine.
And that you take that. So there's that. Like, I'm not saying that if the Predators choose to go that route, which, by the way, as we get through all this, that's probably the route they're going. Like, I think Barry Trotz has essentially told you that. Like, he's going to try to sign UC Saros to a contract extension. We'll see whether or not he's able to get it done. But that's probably the route that this thing is going to end up taking here. Like there's definitely a scenario where he plays great for the next 4, 5, 6 years, and they find a way to build a roster around him, and maybe they get a chance to make a couple of deep playoff runs. Like that could happen. I'm not discounting that possibility. The only thing I've been saying the whole time is, what is the best path to a championship? And I'm not convinced that the best path to a championship is locking in a goalie for 8 years at $8 million per year, given where this team is right now with their roster. That's just me.
I'm with you.
And that's what I've tried to make clear the whole time. And I think for some people it's turned into Robbie hates UC Saros type thing, and that's not the case at all.
Yeah, he's your Mariota. He's your hockey Mariota.
He is, yes.
So Wes in Clarksville, Sean, this comes up every time. Wes, why are NHL contracts so long? 4 years should be the max. Sean, why are y'all locked into giving Saros 8 years? Pay him 9 for 3.
Guys, he's not signing that
guys.
contract. We have to live in reality in this discussion.
These contracts are guaranteed. It's just you can't think of the NFL mindset here. The NFL, it's whatever your guaranteed money is, and then you can easily be cut after a year, 2, whatever it is. These contracts you cannot be. You can be bought out, but these are guaranteed contracts. So the agents, the players, they negotiate the max term. I mean, that's just what it is. And
if you offer
if you offer him 3, he'll be
laugh at you.
Right, he'll be a free agent next summer and he'll go for nothing. That's what will happen. So it's not reality. Someone asked about 5.
He's going to get either a 7-year deal on the open market or a 7 or 8 year deal with the Predators. That's what it is.
That's it. So, and that's, again, it's guaranteed. They're getting the money for sure, so that's the good thing for the players. Obviously, it's not nearly the level of money in the NFL. It's just a totally different situation with a hard cap and an existing, real, actual soft cap in the NFL.
Well, and this is, and Willie's talked about this too. Like when you have top players that reach free agency, this is what they get. They get the max deal, right? Like it's you can get 7 years on the open market from a team that's not yours. Or if you re-sign with your team, it could be a max of 8. Now, one thing I will say, Connor Hellebuck re-signed with the Jets, and it was only a 7. So, like, if you're the Predators, could you get him to sign a 7? Maybe. I'll leave open the door for that. Anything below that, I don't think is reality in this conversation. If so, then it's a heck of a job by Barry Trotz to get that done, because I just don't see where that's a realistic scenario.
Yeah, and if you're Saros' agent, then 7, so 8.25.
Right, it would be more
for
expensive.
example.
Yeah,
a little bit more money in the less term, but it's going to be probably the same number in total, which again is guaranteed money that he's going to get.
615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Caroline Fenton. We'll get her thoughts on the UC Saros discussion, her thoughts on the Titans as well. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. And as we do every Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock, we welcome in our friend Caroline Fenton to the program, host of Caroline, Willie, and D. Mace, that you can check out every morning here on 102.5 The Game starting at 11 o'clock. Caroline, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Appreciate y'all having me on.
We were just talking about, we feel like we're your support group because you go on with Willie and D-Mace and they yell at you about UC Saros every day. And we're on your side. We're Team Caroline here on the program. Welcome to the show. It's like a nice therapeutic 15 minutes for you.
It is a breath of fresh air every morning, every Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock. It truly is. I feel supported. I feel loved. It's my counseling. It's my therapy. It is feeds into my ego a little bit too, which also helps.
Good.
So thank you for being there.
Kind of strange how you didn't defend me yesterday when D-Mace was trashing me, but that's all right. We're still on your side.
Well, my point was, hey, Joe, you got a take? Don't hide it at 6:05 a.m.
Hey.
Well, no, I brought it back, right?
I'm with you.
I brought it back.
Don't say that you're intentionally hiding it at 6:05 a.m. because you don't want people to hear it.
Well, that's the thing. I think if I would have just kept it there, then he probably wouldn't have heard it, right?
Probably not.
D-Mace isn't listening to us at 6, is he?
I don't think so. Maybe he is. Maybe he's working out.
He said he was.
Really? Because I brought it back at 8, and that's where I made a mistake. Again, the reason I was hiding it because I'm not trying to say, I'm not saying he's a freaking guard. So you're making me do my rant early. I don't want to do my rant early. Let's move on. I don't want.
Okay,
I need to save it. I need to save it, Caroline.
We'll save it.
I also do think that we might be forgetting that we do, in fact, have all of our shows on demand.
That's true.
That is a fair point. That is a fair
That
point.
does
You can listen to
happen.
him literally any time.
If you know how to use the internet,
AM.
if you know how to use the internet, it's very effective.
There's a lovely feature on YouTube where you can go back and then catch up on the things that you missed.
That's true. It does happen.
Fair point.
So, Caroline, you've heard all sides of it on the UC Saros front. Willie has got his flow charts and his chart graphs and all this other stuff that we've talked about here on the program. If you had to sum it all up in terms of your position on UC Saros and what Barry Trotz and the Predators should do, what is your position?
Overall, my position is I don't think that signing an almost 30-year-old goaltender to an 8-year, $8 million deal, a goaltender that has not won you a playoff series, gets you any closer to winning a Stanley Cup when you do have a young gun that we believe can take over and be the starter in the near future. Now, I understand that in the near future is of an incredibly vague timeline. Does that mean 3 years? Maybe, but I don't think it means 5 years. And I don't think that you're going to have Askarov sit on the bench for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And Willie's point is, well, why not? Because you can fit both of them under the cap. Yeah, that's fair. You can. The cap's going up, that Askarov is not gonna make. He's gonna make less than $1 million, and I understand that. But my position is, you would be sitting on a gold mine if you had both of them on this roster. If you held on to both of them, and the gold mine is a potential return for what you could get for one or the other. A potential return that could get you closer to building a Stanley Cup contender. And I'm not saying that UC Saros can't win you a playoff series. I understand that he very much so can, that he has the tools to be able to do it, but he hasn't done it yet. And it's not like we can say, okay, well, let's just figure it out if he can do next year. I mean, you could, I guess, but you're also kind of playing with fire there, potentially losing UC Saros for nothing. And Adam Vinkin has said, well, you're not necessarily losing him for nothing. What you're getting is another year out of him and another year of development from Askarov, of having the certainty of Saros for another year at $5 million. And what you'd be losing him for is not having to pay him $8 million. I understand that thought process, but I don't agree with it, because my whole thing is, what can I get in return to make this team better in the future? And I understand you're going to have to take a couple steps back in order to take steps forward. I get that. But I don't think that Barry Trotz said, hey, be patient with us a year ago, and then you make the playoffs and then everything's okay and you don't have to be patient anymore and this team's all of a sudden a Stanley Cup playoff contender. That's not the case. This team is not there yet. And this team is getting older. Like, you're going to have to make some uncomfortable decisions. So overall, my stance is it is signing UC Saros and keeping Askarov the best way to build a Stanley Cup contender when you still don't have enough goal scoring. I don't think so.
See, you hit on something that I've actually warmed a little bit to, which is
Losing for nothing.
Well, yeah, I mean, the idea of, first of all, I mean, we'll see how the negotiations go, whether it's negotiations with, Trotz and Saros. Also, if there are negotiations with other teams on trading him. I mean, if you go into next year, then obviously next year's team will have Saros, and so you'll be more competitive that way. You do have that extra year. And the reason I say that, like someone on the text line asking this, and I do think there's a little bit of a subtext with what Willie's saying all through this, which is, are you sure about Askarov? Obviously, you can't be sure until you are sure, but the fact that he's benched right now for Troy Grosnick and can't seem to get off the bench for the hugely important Calder Cup run. I mean, I guess that would give you another year of, okay, I guess you could have him up here as a backup and you could find out more information. You may then lose Saros for nothing. That's the thing, too, though. The return obviously is underwhelming, right? The return is definitely – like a year ago, I would have thought you'd get a lot for UC Saros, and now I'm not so sure. So maybe that 1 year and losing him for nothing, I'm with you. It's not ideal. You'd rather get something back. But then if Askarov is that guy, you find that out in the year, you feel good about that, and then the gift is the cap space, right?
And I do see that. I do understand that. Not getting a return for Saros would hurt. But yeah, to your point, I mean, Barry Trotz has kept saying at the trade deadline, if we get an absolute haul, if we get something that absolutely knocks our socks off, well, obviously, perhaps we are, because it's the same reasons that we might be skeptical of committing to UC Saros, that in fact he has not won a playoff series. As a general manager around the league that could be goalie needy, look at it and say, well, I'm not going to absolutely blow you away with a couple of prospects from the prospect pool and a haul of picks for a goaltender that still hasn't won a playoff series. And again, I don't want this to be about UC Saros is a bum, because I don't believe that. Nobody believes that. It's not about UC Saros as much as it is about a business decision. And are you going to have a clearer picture of what Askarov is going to become in the next year? You hope that he is. But if you really feel like Askarov will not be ready and won't be ready for quite some time, is it best to move on from him?
That's a good question. Caroline, on the Titans front, what should expectations be for this wide receiver core, and specifically the three big ones that we've talked about? So with Boyd coming in, Calvin Ridley coming in, and DeAndre Hopkins already being here. I mean, you're talking about guys that have accomplished a pretty good deal in this league. So when you factor the moves that Carthon has made to bring those guys in, and what we think is going to be the starting three for the Titans at wide receiver, what do we think expectations should be for that group?
I mean, I think it's fair to have high expectations. One, because of the amount of money that you're investing in Calvin Ridley. Two, because of just the sheer amount of experience combined among all three of them and what all three of them have accomplished in their careers. And obviously D-Hop a little bit more of a proven commodity here with the Titans. But that all is couched with, what's Will Levis? What can Will Levis be? Will Will Levis have protection on the offensive line? I know that everybody thinks that, I'm not going to say everybody. I know a lot of Titans fans think that now all of a sudden the offensive line is perfect, great, amazing, and we'll move on from it because it's taken care of, because you drafted J.C. Latham and you bring in Lloyd Cushenberry and Peter Skoronski has another year under his belt and Bill Callahan is a magician, and all of those things are true. And I do feel at least a little bit better about the offensive line simply because of Bill Callahan and Lloyd Cushenberry, but also because the offensive line was so freaking bad last year that, knock on wood, I don't know how it can be worse with Bill Callahan and with Lloyd Cushenberry. So I think it's fair to expect a decent bit from these wide receivers because they're veterans and you're paying at least one of them a lot of money. But also, a receiver can only be as good as your passing game is. Receivers can only be good as your quarterback allows them to be. I think that this trio of veteran receivers are going to help Will Levis out a lot, are going to be able to bail him out like the Effett, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, or D Hop are out there somewhere. But also that's with the caveat of how good's your quarterback going to be? How much protection, how much time is your quarterback going to get?
What'd you think about Jared Goff's contract, Caroline?
Holy moly.
Good for
I mean,
him.
good for him is right. And if you're the Lions, why not? You get to the divisional round of the playoffs last year. You get to the NFC Championship game last year. You at least feel like you have a guy that can get you to the promised land. And Jared Goff, I think, is the kind of quarterback where you have to surround him with more talent than maybe like a Patrick Mahomes, obviously, because he's not Patrick Mahomes, because nobody's Patrick Mahomes. But I think it's just a testament to when you feel like you have the guy that can get you to that point, you pay that guy. Maybe that's what's on the horizon for Will Levis.
Well, I think maybe
ideally that is.
I think the Titans should consider slapping Vols fans in the face and trade for Hendon Hooker now, right? I mean, isn't that the next logical step here?
Maybe the Titans should just draft Nico Iamaleava next year.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
So that way Vols fans know that they are, just as you are to me, supportive for Vol fans.
Yes.
That reminds me, I saw somebody said something about a 2026 mock draft. There actually was
2026, huh?
Yes.
That's
2026?
I swear.
What are we drafting middle schoolers now?
Let's do that.
Okay, I saw this on A to Z Sports. I'm serious. Okay, I'm the A to Z Sports had draftcountdown.com has the Titans taking Arch Manning with this number 7 pick in the 2026
That's
draft.
good to know.
There we go.
Arch, come on down, buddy.
What?
So they'll have Carson Beck that they drafted
Yeah.
the second overall pick in the 2025 draft, and then with the first overall pick, they'll take Quinn Ewers.
That's good.
So they're going to adopt the Predators' system of just hoarding talent at one position.
all the
Yes,
quarterbacks.
and
all
have
the quarterbacks, all the
7
goalies.
quarterbacks. Battle it out.
I love it.
I love
Not going to have a left tackle, but you know what you are going to have? A
Pl-
third string quarterback.
Plenty of depth at quarterback. Those quarterbacks get hurt. Just bring the next one up.
Maybe Joe Milton will get cut. New England.
Caroline,
We can only hope.
great stuff as always. Thanks so much for taking time to be with us today, and we'll be listening at 11 o'clock.
Appreciate you for having me on. Appreciate y'all for having my being my therapy this morning.
That's what we do. We're here for you. We're here for you.
It's the people's program.
That's right. Caroline Fenton with us every Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock. We'll react to what Caroline had to say. We will get into the Jared Goff contract, who signed a massive deal with Joe's beloved Detroit Lions yesterday.
Oh, here come all the Super Bowls.
Here come all the
Lombardi
Super
flood.
Bowls. What does this mean for a former high-profile Tennessee Volunteer quarterback? We'll get into that coming up next as well. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5,
Hi.
106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. Appreciate Caroline Fenton for being with us in the last segment. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. Big day for Jared Goff yesterday, Joe Rexrode, and your beloved Detroit Lions. Signing a 4-year contract worth, what was the total? $212 million, 170 guaranteed. So $212 million total, $170 million guaranteed for Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. Obviously, he's coming off a really good year. They got to the NFC title game. That offense with Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell and everything they put together there, it was really good, really fun to watch last year, and he played very well. So Jared Goff getting that contract at age 29. What do you make number one of the deal? And we'll get to the Hendon Hooker part of it here in just a few minutes. Let's just start with the deal. What do you make of that deal and that money for Jared Goff?
Well, first of all, are you willing to admit that Jared Goff is better than Ryan Tannehill?
Well, now he is, yeah, for sure. 2 years ago, we were having this discussion. I was not.
Well, the thing is, though, I had to take that shot
Thank
at you.
you.
But honestly, I think Jared Goff's a great example. He's played well. Good for him. I can't argue with paying him. It is the number is just wow for Jared Goff.
It is.
But he's a great example of put a quarterback in a great situation. He's a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
He's good. If you put Ryan Tannehill in that situation, think about how good Tannehill was when the play action game was working here and the running game was working here, when the offensive line was good, when the offensive coordinating was good, when the receiving was good. Think about how good he was. And Ryan Tannehill is sitting there unemployed at this point, and Jared Goff just signed a $212 million deal. Whether you believe Goff's better than Tannehill or Tannehill's better than Goff, it's very close. It is very
At least it
close.
was. Like, Tannehill, I don't know what Tannehill is anymore. Like, Tannehill has gotten hurt last couple of years, and then he lost his job this past season. Like, what is he now at his age? I don't know. 2 years ago, for sure.
Do you really think that Tannehill's game has diminished that much in the last 2 years?
I mean, it's diminished some.
Yeah. He got hurt. He played for a terrible offense with no blocking, no receiving, no offensive coordinating, so he looked like crap. I mean,
he's 35. It's diminished some.
yeah, and that is another thing about this. Like Jared Goff getting paid, I'm like, God, that's crazy that he's only 29.
I know.
It feels like those two are closer. But I propose to you that Ryan Tannehill right now gets completely healthy this offseason, and you plug him into that Lions offense for a couple of years, he'd get a contract.
Okay.
I absolutely believe that. I mean, maybe not the same one. Maybe the 6 years is the difference, but I think it's a great example of conditions being so critical for a quarterback. Some of them can overcome and transcend the conditions. Very few of them can. But good for Jared Goff. And now, what does that mean for Hendon Hooker? Now that almost looks like it's different, but it almost feels like a Atlanta situation. It's like, because Michael Penix may just be sitting there behind another guy who's a good quarterback who, when he gets the conditions, he can be better than good. That's Kirk Cousins. Very similar to the other two guys we just talked about. So if the Lions are going to continue to be good, and they just extended Sewell, they just extended Amon-Ra St. Brown, but they're just, they're
Money left and right.
loading up to they changed over the cornerback room. They're loading up to try to win a Super Bowl. What's Hendon Hooker going to do? Hendon Hooker was already old coming in the NFL.
Well, look, last year essentially was a lost year for him. I mean, he was recovering from the torn ACL, and I think he finally got healthy like 3/4 of the way through the season, right? So there was not much going on for Hendon Hooker last year. Like, it's not like he got in the preseason and played in any games. He's 26, and he is a third-round pick. It's different for sure from the Penix situation, too, of him being a first-round pick and Hendon Hooker being a third-round pick. I mean, look, maybe – I don't know. Maybe when the Lions drafted him, maybe they viewed him as a backup anyway. I have no idea. Like, I don't know. Was their long-term plan to have Hendon Hooker be their starting quarterback? I don't know. But right now, I mean, you're talking about a 4-year contract for Goff, which would take this until Hendon Hooker is 30 years old. So it doesn't look like that opportunity is coming for him in Detroit. So is he just going to sit there and be the backup to Goff, or do they look to move him at some point?
See, I could be wrong, but I feel like when they drafted him, they weren't sure that Goff was going to take the next step, which he did last year. He took it, and they go to the NFC title game, so I think that changed things. I think that the idea that maybe in a couple of years he'd be ready to take over helped inform that draft pick. At the same time, if you like him and he's healthy and he's developing well, it's not bad to have a young, cheap backup. It's just a matter of, I guess, you could move him and try to get a little bit more of an established quarterback who has actually played in the league some. But, and obviously, I'm sure Hendon Hooker would prefer that and to possibly get an opportunity somewhere. I still think Hendon Hooker could absolutely be a good NFL quarterback. Like if Hendon Hooker got a chance with that offense, I'd like his chances. I mean, his accuracy. I think he'd be. Obviously, people talking about his college offense. Yeah, it's a big change. I mean, he switched offenses in college too. So just because the Tennessee offense has some things that you can't do in the NFL doesn't mean he can't be good in an NFL offense.
Do you think the Lions, with what they've done, I mean, I need to go look at the Super Bowl odds and see exactly where they are, but do you feel like that they've got a legitimate, pretty good chance here to break through, given the moves that they've made? And do you think Jared Goff, given what's around him right now, can win a Super Bowl in Detroit?
Yeah, I mean, get the quarterback. Can they win a Super Bowl? Yeah, the Lions. If the Lions get to a better point the Lions won't win a Super Bowl because they're the Lions, okay? But you're asking just hypothetically, could he win a Super Bowl? Sure. He's better than Brad Johnson, who won a Super Bowl.
I agree.
So, yeah, it's possible.
By the way, the Lions are tied with the Cincinnati Bengals and the Buffalo Bills for the 4th best odds to win the Super Bowl. San Francisco at number 1, Kansas City at 2, Baltimore at 3, and then Cincinnati, Detroit, and Buffalo, a 3-way tie for 4th.
Okay.
I don't know that I buy the Buffalo part of that. But
yeah, I don't know. That's about as good as it gets, Lions. Enjoy it now. See, so Caleb on the text line. It's not very close. Goff is ascending rapidly and Tannehill the opposite. If Jared Goff were here with this Titans offense the last 2 years, you'd think he sucks. Jared Goff would not have done anything but get sacked and not score points had he been here. I'm sorry. I mean, quarterback's most important position. And also, there's so much more to football. And I think Jared Goff and Ryan Tannehill are a perfect example of that, but some people are not going to want to look at it that way.
I agree. Now, Tannehill also doesn't have a job right now. So is that the league telling us that they don't think he's very good anymore? Do we think that that's Tannehill being maybe selective on where he goes and waiting it out here? How do we view that?
I think it's both. I think the league is telling us that he's not a starter,
and
he's telling us that, no, I am a starter. He would certainly have a backup job if he wanted now.
I would think so.
So, and look, maybe the injuries have accumulated to the point to where you're right, and he's diminished more than I think he has.
I think he was clearly not as mobile as he used to be definitely last year.
Yeah. And if that's the case, that's an underrated part of his game. But he's still more mobile than Jared freaking Goff. I mean, my God, like Tannehill's athleticism compared to Cousins and Goff. Goff is he has some crafty little side steps in the pocket, but I don't know, man. I think Tannehill. Yeah, I think it's a great example. But I know people are just going to take it like Goff has become this incredible player, and he's good, and he has taken advantage of it. It turned out to be an incredible situation for him. Think about when he was traded from the Rams, how that looked.
Yeah.
You get thrown out with the trash, go to Detroit, and try to stay in the league, and now he just signed a $212 million deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's really
a league.
Yeah, it's great for him. I mean, Hey, look, I think he's a good player. I'm more with you in terms of, like, I think the situation around him right now is really good, and I think that is elevated probably what he is a little bit. You know, people were shocked by the money that he got, but that's just quarterback now, right? Like that's what the money's going to be for quarterbacks. Like I think whenever Jordan Love signs his new deal, which could be this offseason, I think people are going to be blown away by how much money he makes after having basically 1 year as a starter. Like it's just what quarterback is now. Like and that's why, like, on the Titans front, it would be great to figure out what Will Levis is this year, so you got another year or two of him playing on a cheap deal, and you can surround him before you have to pay him the boatload of money that you're going to have to pay him if he turns out to be really good.
For sure. How about Trevor Lawrence coming up?
Yeah, he's going to make – I think people are going to be stunned by that. Because, like,
you can't
what do you do
not
if you're
do
the
it.
Jags? You can't not pay him, right? Like, he's good enough to where you pay him. Is he what you've drafted him to be so far? No. But, like, he's been good enough to where you can't just let him walk either.
Yeah. You know,
I think.
Yes, they will pay him. You can't not pay him. Yeah, some people will argue with that, but like, if you have a good quarterback in this league, you're paying that person because it can be a lot worse. Everybody wants Mahomes and Burrow,
yeah,
but you also don't want to be in that bottom 10 to 12 where you're just in the wilderness. They're going to pay him.
I'm searching for preseason storylines this year. I will be watching some Detroit Lion preseason football. I want to see how Hendon Hooker plays.
That's true.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah. Actually, that is a good point. He'll probably
Milton,
he'll probably get a ton
Hendon
of snaps.
Hooker. A lot of preseason football going on out there this year.
Maybe the Lions and Patriots will play in the preseason.
That'd be awesome. Battling it out. Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker. Vol Twitter would be ablaze.
Oh, my goodness. How exciting would that be?
615-737-1025. Our phone number. More of your thoughts on the Jared Goff contract that Detroit signed yesterday. Also, now that we know what the season opening game is going to be for the NFL, the Ravens taking on the Chiefs, what do we think Derrick Henry is going to do this season in Baltimore? How closely are you going to be watching Derrick Henry if you're a Titans fan? We'll take your thoughts on all that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Join Cromwell Media along with local athletes and musicians at Hermitage Golf Course on June the 20th for the 615 Open. Make a difference while supporting Souls for Souls. Every $20 raised goes towards a new pair of shoes for a local child experiencing homelessness. Sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com. We're taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025. Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Mike. Mike, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning, guys. Really quick here, I just wanted to, my idea why Ryan Tannehill hasn't been signed is because he's not that good anymore, and he wasn't that great to begin with. I'm gonna tell you something, man. That offense was carried by Derrick Henry, and the only reason Ryan Tannehill got the openings he did with long passes or anything is because defenses were keying on Derrick. But the thing is, too, is people have a lot of video on what Ryan Tannehill is now. And, it's kind of, he is what he is. Is he going to get you to the Super Bowl? No. Did he get us to the AFC Championship game? I mean, he was a part of it, but that was Derrick Henry. And that's the reason. And also, I didn't realize Jared Goff was only 29 years old. I feel like I've been watching him play football forever. But Goff was one play away from winning a Super Bowl. I mean, that was a close game, and then not only that, but last year they were right in it. They should have won that game, but I blame the coaching calls for the reason why they lost that NFC Championship game. That wasn't on Goff, and so Goff deserves the payday. The pay for quarterbacks is only going to go up. They're getting in now. And so I think they made the right move by signing Jared Goff because you know what you got with him. And honestly, he's grown as a quarterback. He's matured. He shows a lot of grit. He takes the hits. He gets up. And he doesn't choke in key moments like Ryan Tannehill did. And that's all I got.
Now, one thing I will say, I think if you think that Ryan Tannehill just doesn't have a job because no team wants him to even be the backup, I think you're fooling yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
I think if he was willing to just totally accept a backup role, that he'd probably have that by now. Now
He'd be one of the most coveted backups in the league.
Eventually, it's going to he's going to be forced into that. He's not going to be a starter. So I think we know that at this point. So I would assume at some point here, right around when camp opens up, he's going to sign somewhere. But
right,
I don't think. I think if you view it as the league thinks that Ryan Tannehill's not good enough to be in the league, we're going a little bit too far there.
I don't want to sit here and die on the hill of Ryan Tannehill is still a great player. And I disagree with some of what Mike said there. I agree and disagree. Of course you start with Derrick Henry. And the running game was such a huge part of it. And Tannehill didn't have huge numbers in that playoff run, but he did make very important winning throws on the way to the AFC title game. He did choke in the Bengals game. There's no way around it.
Yep.
Ryan Tannehill could have done what Jared Goff did last year. Ryan Tannehill could have gotten the Detroit Lions with the way they ran the ball, with all the things they have, with one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, one of the top 2 or 3 offensive lines in the NFL. He could have gotten them that far.
You're going to really
I don't care what you say.
Up.
That's fine.
People again, after you about J.C. Latham and now Ryan Tannehill, it's been a heck of a week for you.
Yeah, seriously. And Jared Goff, I agree. I agree with what Mike said. Jared Goff, I have a lot of respect for him for what I've seen from him in terms of how he has gotten better. He's matured. I agree. There's grit. I respect him. He's good. He would have sucked here the last couple of years because it was a terrible situation for any quarterback in this league to play for this god-awful offense with this god-awful offensive line. So it's a god-awful offensive line here, arguably the worst in the league, and it's arguably the best offensive line in the league in Detroit. You can't tell me there isn't a world of difference for a quarterback in those two scenarios.
Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Adam in Portland. Adam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, hey, real quick. So, number one, you were asking about Derrick Henry. I'm actually really excited to see what that looks like. I don't know what it is. I didn't want him on our team anymore just because I was ready to move on to a new page. And, but not forget the old page, man. He was amazing. So I think he's still got plenty left in the tank. I think it could be fun to watch him. However, and this kind of brings me to my question, and I usually don't have a question for you guys, but I would like to go around the room. Has there been a subject since you guys have been doing your radio show together that was so played that you were just like exhaustingly tired of talking about? Because I hear that it's number one, it's the UC Soros thing right now. It's also like the Titans offensive line. I'm so worn out. I'm just ready for real games and stuff to happen, and I'm so exhausted. But I'm curious if you've ever like hit a wall with some of these topics where you're like, I've got to move on from this.
Yep,
Nope.
thanks, Phil. All the time.
I've never been sick of any topic.
We love talking about the draft a lot, too. That's one of our favorites.
Right.
Bring me more draft talk.
How's Aaron Rodgers' house in Nashville?
To answer your question, yes. There's several things that we get tired of talking about. But the problem is we want to see the games, too. Games aren't until September, and it's May. We got some time to fill.
Did they have Busch Light on the plane from Green Bay? Yeah, I mean, shoot. I almost – jeez, I need to stop myself. I said shoot. We just talked about the freaking 2026 mock draft, okay? Yes, we get sick of topics. Yeah, I know.
Man.
I forgot where I was for a minute. It's like what's his name with Keyshawn the other day? Like, dude.
Paul Pierce.
Paul Pierce, you're on camera.
Hey, Paul, you're on TV.
You're on
Let's not do that.
television.
So on the Derrick Henry front, we know the opening game of the season will be Baltimore and Kansas City on Thursday night at Arrowhead, and that San Francisco is number 1 on the list, Kansas City is number 2. Well, Baltimore is number 3. So you're talking about the second and third best odds to win the Super Bowl according to the FanDuel Sportsbook, taking on each other on the first game of the season. As you look at Derrick Henry, the situation he's walking into with Lamar Jackson, he's now 30 years old. The offensive line difference that he's walking into, which certainly is in a better situation than it was the last 2 years here in Nashville with the Titans. What do you think of what the offense looks like with him in it? What are expectations that you have for Derrick Henry in the offense with Baltimore?
Can't wait to see it. I mean, I think they have to do some things a little differently to maximize him, but just look at last year, that game against Kansas City. You're talking about, I think, the number 1 rush offense in the league, right? I believe last year, if not very close to it. And absolutely no running game in that game against the Chiefs, right? And I know it's probably simplistic to that's one game, one matchup, and the Chiefs were really good on D. But I mean, Lamar Jackson had 8 carries for 54 yards in that game. The rest of the team had 8 carries for 27 yards. So, you got Gus Edwards gets 3, Zay Flowers and Justice Hill get 2 or 3. Put Derrick Henry in that situation with that offense. I've been saying it forever. That's the number 1 offense I want to see him in, because I just feel like like what they do and the threat Lamar Jackson is, and they've done a better job, I think, of making him less of a threat. Like, it felt like he didn't even run in that game because of what they used to do with him. But he still, again, 8 carries for 54 yards. He was their whole running game. You put defense in a conflict with that offense, that I just feel like Derrick Henry is just going to have so much more space than he had here the last few years behind, again, a god-awful offensive line and a terrible offense. I think he's still got gas in the tank. I am anticipating soon him lifting a truck with one hand while tumbling down a hill. We'll get that video soon enough. He's going to be in great shape, and I think it's going to be really good. And I think it could be, boy, what a great narrative buster that would be if he makes the difference for them to get to the Super Bowl, because, the running back's not supposed to matter that much. I just think it could be the missing piece for them.
Well, what I'm interested to see, I agree with you on all that. Like, he's going to be in good shape. He's certainly going to help them. I am interested to see how much they use him in terms of, like, how many carries is he going to get. And you got 280 last year with the Titans in 17 games, which was down, fairly significantly. I mean, the year before that he had 349 carries in 16 games. So his carries took a pretty significant downturn last year. Does he get to 280 with Baltimore? In some ways, I think I would kind of be surprised if he does.
Yeah.
Like, does he get 240, 250, like somewhere around there. But I think, number one, Lamar, his running ability. Number two, the weapons they have in the passing game. And look, Lamar threw the ball really well last year. Like, I think the carries will probably go down for Derrick Henry would be my guess.
Yeah, I do
Is that a
too.
good thing? Is that a bad thing for him? I don't know.
Yeah. Look, any running back would want 20, 25 carries, but I think at this point that is a good thing. I think it should be a good thing, and it's just you just have to take advantage of your opportunities. Someone had a text about how he's so much better than the two Detroit backs. But they had a great combination of power and speed, and there's so many teams in this league now with effective running back play from a split carry situation. That's what the Titans are going to be in this coming year.
Yep.
So he's got to adjust to that, and I just think the opportunities are going to be good. And I still think that in a certain situation, they're in the fourth quarter holding on to a lead, it can still be like an 8-carry quarter for him, right? And that's still – and maybe he only had 5 before that, but I think he can be a finisher for them, and obviously a goal line factor too.
But I think that's where, like, to me, a team that was already really dangerous in the red zone because of all the different things Lamar can do, and then you add that with now Derrick Henry in the red zone, like they're going to be – I would be shocked if they're not top 5 red zone team this year. Like they're going to be really good.
With actual good receivers now, with the stud tight end they've had,
615-737-1025, our phone number. Coming up next, it is time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. He's been waiting for this one all day. We'll get into that. John Glennon coming up at 8 o'clock, all that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment, let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
We'll grade him on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah. Move it! Hustle!
These guys 6s. Give these guys 5s.
Good.
3s.
Very nice!
Aren't we missing somebody? Where's the Kansas State guy?
It is time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode.
I'm still on this team.
I'm sorry. Should we just play this mediocre movie the whole way through? I
We
know.
have.
Don't even know what I said. Not sure other people know what I said.
Wonder if Keezer could make this intro a little longer. We have determined that Keezer's a big fan of The Longest Yard.
God. Watch a different movie.
You ever seen Little Giants? No.
No, what is that?
Oh, boy.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, boy.
The Sandlot?
Yes.
Okay.
It's from the same era.
You're killing me, Smalls.
There you go.
Why don't you rant about something good?
Dude, okay.
Played half The Longest Yard there.
How about
Got a new rant. Keezer, get shorter.
Hey, this is about a guard. That was a guard that couldn't pass anything, and I don't think this rant passes for anything either. So go on, Joe.
Ooh, my goodness.
Takes one bachelor party to Pigeon Forge.
Why are we
and he
going back
comes
to a bachelor party?
He comes back a little spicy.
I've
you
had confidence.
You must be really confident in that playlist you're making for your
Little
wedding,
spicy.
there, buddy. Yeah. Okay, so you were being thematic there. That was okay. Something I couldn't tell. It was like once we got like to the middle part of the movie.
I don't know when to talk, when to shut up.
All right, so I actually almost want to switch this to a Bronny rant because we do need to talk about this at some point.
I think I might do that tomorrow.
There you go. All right, I like it. Let's plan on it. But yeah, I guess we'll continue the arguments among different hosts at this station because I got totally unfairly wrapped up in something yesterday. D-Mace, and I'm going to defend myself, but I guess we've got a little bit of that. I think he talked about it for a long time, but we got a little snippet of D-Mace attacking me.
Where did this all come from?
Because
Where did you hear this?
Because I keep hearing it on our shows, like every
Call him out.
Jared, Rexrode, all of them. They keep on saying but I want to know from these guys, like, really, what does they? Okay, so if he looks this way, that means he's going to be the left tackle. So even if somebody played left tackle, if they don't look like a left tackle, we can't put him at left tackle. Is that what we're saying? So we can't switch a guy that came into college as a left tackle, but because they had a left tackle, they put him at right. He excelled at right. Why switch him? He excelled at right, people. Why switch him from right tackle to left tackle? Saban is a great coach, and I'm sure he has great coaches on that staff. But they felt, hey, damn, he's doing good at right tackle. Let's just keep him there. We will find, we are Alabama. We'll find another 5-star left tackle. We'll do it. And they did. They found him a left tackle. Uh-huh. They had a freshman left tackle, I think, playing this past year.
Proctor.
A big, huge mammoth.
He wasn't very good.
And he wasn't very good. But he looked like a left tackle, didn't he? He looked like a left tackle. So people explain that to me.
There was a lot more, but he did mention my name there. But, yeah, basically the gist was I said he looked like a guard. I said it 6:05 because it was just an off-the-cuff observation. I'm not saying he's going to play guard. I'm not saying that. I never said that. Did I say that?
You did not say that.
Did I not qualify everything I
Although-
said yesterday? Like, I'm not saying I think he's switching there. I'm just saying I looked at him like, God, he looks like Roger Saffold.
Although when you did say it, I knew that somebody was going to take it.
Yeah.
I thought it would be Jarrett. It was not. It was D-Mace.
Well, that's the thing. So I get lumped in with, so apparently Jared's whole thing is he looks like a right tackle. What the hell does that mean? That's stupid.
I don't know.
He looks like a right tackle?
Yeah.
Yeah, in old-time football, when the left tackle's a pass protector, the right tackle's a run blocker. I mean, that's not the era of football we're in. So I don't understand what Jared means by that. That doesn't make any sense. Just to support what I qualified with yesterday, which is I know he's a tackle. Look, J.C. Latham has 35 and an eighth inch arms, okay, which is longer than Joe Alt, which is longer than Fuaga, which is longer than Fashanu. He has a wingspan of 84 and 3/8 inches. And of the top 11 guys, only Patrick Paul and Amarius Mims have longer wingspans than J.C. Latham.
What's his hand size? Is it bigger than Kenny Pickett?
His hand size is 11. Oh, yeah, big hands, destroys Fashanu with his little 8.5 baby hands, and also some of the biggest hands out there. Also, I will point out, and I wasn't saying this. I was not saying this. But we talked about this going into the draft. Dane Brugler, the Beast, the Athletic. I'll read it again. Quote, on Latham, quote, he's an ascending prospect with the talent to win a starting right tackle job as an NFL rookie, although some teams project him best inside at guard, end quote. Some teams project him as a guard. I'm not projecting him as a guard. I'm not saying as a guard. I just looked at him the other day and I said, because he's so thick and squatty that he just looks like one. I understand he's playing left tackle. Stop yelling at me. And stop lumping me in with Jared. If Jared's saying he looks like a right tackle, that doesn't even make any sense.
That's what he said. I saw J.C. Latham on the field on Friday with my own two eyes. He looks like a right tackle, was his tweet last night.
I don't understand what that means. Do you understand what that means?
I guess because he's bigger. Like, what's he listed at? Is he listed at like 330, 340?
Yeah, he's basically 6'6", 342.
I guess that's why, because he's big.
Yeah. I think you could go around the NFL right now and you could find right tackles who, again, quote unquote, look like tackles, which is a little bit leaner. That's the thing. Latham has the length. It's just that he's so big and strong, it doesn't look that way. That's why I thought he looked like Saffold, just so powerful and strong. I wasn't saying anything about where he's going to play. That's why I said the stupid take at 6:05. But I stupidly brought it back at 8 o'clock.
You don't know Nate Davis from a jar of Vicks.
One of my favorite drops.
That is a great drop. Yeah, so D-Mace, stop yelling at me. And please, everybody, I'm in way too many arguments that are on Jared's side.
It's a big week for you. From the Saros part of this to now the J.C. Latham doesn't look like a left tackle. You're in there with Jared this week, big time.
And earlier on the show, I wondered why Troy Grosnick keeps starting for the Milwaukee Admirals so they can win a Calder Cup. Sometimes Jared's right. Don't make that a drop. Please don't make that a drop.
Oh, boy.
Oh, God.
Sometimes Jared's right.
No.
I knew yesterday when you said it that it was going to cause some problems. Now, look, to your point, all you were talking about was just the way he looks, right?
Yes.
We all agree he's going to play left tackle.
I'm not saying he plays like a guard. I'm not saying he is going to play guard. I don't have any.
We're also not saying he can't play left tackle at a high level. We just have questions about it. We'll see.
Yeah.
Moving from right to left.
And the questions don't have anything to do with how he looks either. Again, it was just, I was out there. I was like, God, he's just so, guard. Again, Roger Saffold in particular, when he was here, that guy blotted out the sun. And when he got moving and he squared somebody up, it was
bad news.
Holy cow. Yep. And that's just what I just thought he looked like that. Sorry. Sorry for talking.
This has been the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. We'll take your thoughts. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we'll be joined by John Glennon from the Nashville Post. We'll get his thoughts on the Titans. We'll get his thoughts on the Predators offseason and where the Preds go from here. All that is coming up next. Make sure you check out Nashville's best deal of the week. It's Bavarian Beer House, conveniently located at Opry Mills Mall. Enjoy beer, food, music, and fun at Nashville's only authentic German beer hall, where it's Oktoberfest every day. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals to get a $50 gift card for only $25 to Bavarian Beer House while supplies last. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. And we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in our friend John Glennon from the Nashville Post. John, good morning. How are you?
I am well. How are you guys?
We're great. Appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning. John, we'll start on the Titans front. So when you look at the wide receiver core, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, now Tyler Boyd joining the mix as well. That kind of shifts NWI back, Traylon Burks back. How do you view what the Titans have assembled this offseason at wide receiver, and what do you think the expectation should be for this wide receiver core heading into the season?
I like what they've done a lot, and I think there should be pretty solid expectations for this group. You know, I mean, just taking a look at sort of the Tyler Boyd acquisition lately, I mean, I think that's the perfect fit, the perfect complement. You know, I guess, first of all, you're bringing in a guy who's obviously very, comfortable, very familiar with a Brian Callahan offense. So that's going to be a kind of a seamless addition there. And I think, you know, we heard Will Levis talk last week about how excited he was to speak with Tyler Boyd, simply because Tyler Boyd has actually been through this offense before. He's been the guy in the tape that Will Levis has been watching for weeks now, and Will Levis was very, enthusiastic about talking to him, getting a better idea of the offense. And Tyler Boyd is the guy that's used to being in an offense with three good wide receivers and kind of being the third option and producing well in that regard. So I think it's a really good fit. And then, you look at the other two guys. I mean, Calvin Ridley sort of takes care of your deep threat. He's got enough speed to scare defenses a little bit there. DeAndre Hopkins sort of excels out on the boundary and those contested catches and so forth. So to me, I think it's a really good combination. You know, I mean, we're all going to see how they mix and meld together, you know, in the next few months. But on paper, it looks like a really good trio.
So with Burks, I know some Titans fans have talked about trading him. I don't think Titans aren't going to get anything in a trade for him. I do feel like, John, first of all, fourth receiver plays. I mean, fourth receiver gets snaps, gets opportunities. But also it's almost like I could look at it like maybe it's a bit of an audition for him, especially if they don't extend Hopkins, and this is it for Hopkins. Obviously, Boyd a little older too, and they're going to need to keep replenishing the receiving core. Is that how you look at it? That basically Burks needs to prove he can stick at the fourth receiver and maybe give himself a shot to be more of a factor next season?
Yeah, I think maybe the one thing Burks has going for him in this situation is that at last there are no expectations for him, right? I mean, I guess that's the optimistic way of looking at it. You talk about a first-round guy who came in here, and immediately what the thought was, okay, you've got to be the next A.J. Brown. That obviously never materialized. You know, it's been one kind of injury and disappointment after another. Now he's kind of got, the spotlight is off him, certainly, because he's at best, number 4 in the pecking order right now. But still, you have to believe there is a great deal of potential there. Again, as you said, DeAndre Hopkins has one more year left on his contract. Tyler Boyd has 1 year on his contract. So likely there will be an opening or potentially 2 ahead of him, coming up. And if I think the biggest question mark for Traylon Burks is, can he just stay healthy for any period of time? That's when we'll get to see, what level of talent is there. We just haven't really been able to see him get in any kind of a flow, develop any confidence over a long term, because every time he's in for 2 or 3 games, there's an injury, and he's out for 2 or 3 games. So I don't think that this new coaching staff, has completely closed the book on Traylon Burks. But I just don't think they had enough confidence in him going forward to be even the number 3 guy. So he's going to have to do what he can with the opportunities he gets, and prove himself for down the line.
John Glennon with us here on Robby and Rexrode. So, John, obviously the Titans with their first 2 picks in the draft have gotten a lot bigger with J.C. Latham coming in with T'Vondre Sweat. On the Latham front, what do you make of the challenge now in front of him of moving from the right side to the left side and everything that goes with that? And on the Sweat front, how do you view what kind of player he is while also the weight challenges and everything else that's around him right now, kind of heading into his first season here with the Titans?
Yeah, I think the one concern, that maybe a lot of Titans fans are having is that your very first two picks, you've got those kind of question marks going ahead into the off season and ahead into the regular season too. I think ideally, especially with your high picks like this, they're more kind of plug and play, and you don't really have any questions, about whether they're going to be able to move from one spot to another or do they have character concerns and so forth. So that's sort of like the nagging issue to me about these guys, is that you have questions about your top two picks. Maybe they're answered successfully, everything goes well, we just don't know yet. But in terms of J.C. Latham, if there's one guy I think we all give the benefit of the doubt to in evaluating linemen and whether a guy can move from right to left, it's probably Bill Callahan. He's had 22 years as an offensive line coach. He's moved multiple guys from from right to left successfully in the past. And J.C. Latham, we've certainly seen that he's got the strength and he appears to have the athleticism. So I think the odds are good, but we just don't know yet, and I think that's a little bit bothersome for a first round pick. T'Vondre picked in the second round, and I understand the concerns, but it didn't bother me so much from a player standpoint. I think maybe what the Titans were thinking was there was a little bit of a run on defensive linemen that had started. They were looking in the second round at having a pick there and not having another pick until the fourth round, and wanting very desperately to get somebody to be next to Simmons. And I kind of like, what T'Vondre Sweat brings to the table. I think he's extremely talented. And again, it's just a question of, do you have the weight concerns? Do you have the character concerns? And we just don't know yet. And I think that's, if there's a little bit of angst among fans, it's this kind of waiting. Okay, is the switch going to happen on J.C. Latham? Is that going to work fine? Is T'Vondre Sweat, going to go at all haywire? I think there's some PTSD certainly from Titans fans in that earlier first-round picks in the past couple of years have not worked out well. First or second-round picks have not worked out well. But I like the pick of Sweat personally. I think if they judged that he's okay character-wise, condition-wise, I think there's a lot of potential as a player, certainly combined with Jeffrey Simmons in there.
Definitely some potential. Do you think J.C. Latham looks like a guard? Do you agree with me?
I think he's more of a center, personally. Maybe he's kind of a center, long snapper.
Fullback?
We'll give him a shot there.
But did he not look to you like Roger Savo when you saw him out there?
Certainly got the frame. Yeah, certainly has that size and so forth. And it's hard to tell, obviously, from watching 30 minutes of drill work in one day. Try to get a look forward, but there's obviously some athleticism. There's obviously some mobility, and again, Bill Callahan is a guy who's done this before, who's worked it successfly. So, generally speaking, I think you give a guy like that the benefit of the doubt. If you're somebody who likes to be pessimistic, you go back to maybe Dylan Radins, and Dylan Radins has been pretty open about it the last couple of years, how difficult actually that move can be from one side of the line to the other, reversing all the muscle memory, and reversing of all the habits that you've had in the past. So I don't think it's necessarily going to be easy, but man, he's got some tools. There's no doubt about that.
John, on the Predators front, as you look at the way the season ended, obviously it was a great run for them the second half of the year. They get to the first round of the playoffs. May have deserved a better result than they got, but here they are, one and done in the playoffs. A roster that is not as young as some people think it is, and a goaltending decision coming up for Barry Trotz and the Nashville Predators this offseason as well. So how do you view where the Predators are now and what their best path forward is this offseason with Barry Trotz at the helm?
Yeah, they got some interesting questions, and I think certainly that goaltending one, it's a puzzle, how exactly to figure that out. I think in a perfect world, you'd like to have UC Saros for another few years, and again, kind of bring Askarov along a little bit slower. But the thing is about UC Saros, as we know, he's just got the 1 year left under contract, and I don't think you're looking at a situation where you can say, hey, maybe we'll sign Saros to a 3 or 4 year deal, and that'll solve all the problems, because I think Saros is going to be wanting one of those 7 or 8 year deals at probably over $8 million a year that we saw like Hellebuck sign last year, and Sorokin also. So it's difficult. You want to keep Saros, but is that too much of a price to pay? And then another option that kind of leaves you scratching your head is, okay, why don't we keep Saros? Let Askarov be maybe a number 2 next year, but that doesn't seem like much of an option really either if you don't have Saros under contract for more, because what are you going to do? You're going to trade Saros at the trade deadline to make sure you get something next year, and then all of a sudden turn over the keys to whether that's Askarov or whether if it's Lankinen if he's resigned. It's a difficult situation. I mean, there's talent. Obviously, there's talent for the Predators at goal, but that's the biggest question for sure. I'm eager to see also what the Predators do with this incredible kind of glut of draft picks that they have the next couple of years. They've got a ton of draft capital thanks to all that wheeling and dealing they did the previous year at the deadline. And Barry Trotz was I thought pretty open about the fact that he'd like to employ a little of that Vegas Golden Knights model going forward. Not completely as much of a wheeling dealing team as the Knights, but certainly use some of that draft capital to potentially get some prospects and younger players. So I don't think we're going to be seeing the Preds use that huge glut of draft picks. 9 in the first 4 rounds, I think, this year, and another 5 in the first 3 the following year. I expect Barry to make some moves, leading up to the draft.
Well, John, really appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning. Great stuff as always, and we will talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
John Glennon from the National Post, our guest on Robby and Rexrode. We'll react to what John had to say coming up next. Also throw the question out there to you. What is your expectation for this Titans wide receiver core heading into the season? We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Tuesday morning. Appreciate John Glennon for being with us in the last segment. Joe Rexrode, as you look at the work the Titans have done at wide receiver with the starting trio that we believe that it will be the case, with Hopkins, Ridley, and now with Boyd coming in. Number one, how do you think that group stacks up to some other wide receiver cores around the league? And number two, what do you think the expectation should be for those three in particular, but the receiving core as a whole heading into year one under Brian Callahan?
Well, I think as a trio, that's pretty good. I mean, just as a trio, it's sort of, I guess there's a question. Well, I guess you could say there's a question with all three of them, but Hopkins answered questions big time last year.
He did.
And Ridley, I feel pretty confident is going to be an impactful player. There's a little bit of a question there, like how good is he? How much of an impact does he make? Boyd, again, these guys all have some mileage on them, but at this point, no real reason to think that there's a big drop-off. I mean, the Boyd deal, I guess, is almost the one thing that makes me think, gosh, like, I figured there'd be a little bit more of a market for a guy who's done as much as he's done. So maybe that's an indication, that he's slowing down, that you don't want to get too excited about his addition, but he's just been nothing but a productive pro.
Yeah.
So who are the best receiving – the thing is, who would you have said the best receiving core in the NFL was – last year? You probably would have started with the Bengals with Higgins, Boyd, and Chase, right? Well, now you take Boyd out of there. That's still
pretty good.
Still probably put the Bengals ahead of the Titans because of those two, right? I mean, with Chase, and that's the thing. I mean, so any receiving core that has an elite player in it, and I don't think the Titans qualifies. Hopkins is a Hall of Famer, but he's not
his best days behind him.
DeAndre Hopkins. So who's better? I still think the Eagles, with, of course, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
Texans.
Is pretty good. Now the Texans' receiving core looks really good. As of now, of the Niners, I guess they're going to keep going. There's been all kinds of talk about different guys being moved out of there. Yeah. But Debo and Ayuk, and by the way, Jennings is a real nice compliment to those guys. I mean, you got to go Hill and Waddle. And you forget about Waddle because he was hurt a lot last year, but that's way up there.
What about the Lions?
Well,
St. Brown's
St.
really
Brown
good.
Is an incredible player. St. Brown might be as impactful a slot receiver as there is in the league. Really, he's a number one receiver who mostly lines up in the slot.
Yep.
But that's what he is. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I just – like they got some other guys. Obviously, the big question is and I think they're banking on
Jameson Williams.
Yes, thank you, Jameson Williams to do something. And if you count tight ends, like Laporte is really good, but we're just talking purely receiving core. Yep. I mean, the Titans are probably you got Metcalf and Lockett, right?
Evans, Godwin.
Just the fact that, yeah, that's true. They're older, but they're still really good. The Vikings, just because they have Justin Jefferson and whoever. Addison's a nice player. Yep. Addison's a nice player. They're probably hovering around top 10-ish, top 10 to 12. And, again, that's –
which think about where they were last year, right?
Yeah.
That's a dramatic difference.
Dramatic difference. I suppose you could say like I don't know where they would have been like in 2020. Corey Davis came up like 10 yards short of a 1,000-yard season. But I still think that was one star and a passing game that did benefit a lot from the rushing attack. So it's a really good group. And again, with Burks, I think it's if he gets whatever it is, he's going to get a couple dozen snaps a game. Now, if NWI gets those snaps, well, then there you go.
Right.
At this point, Treylon Burks.
And are we confident that he won't get those snaps over Burks?
Well, I don't know.
I'm not.
Yeah, I don't. Well, if that's the case, then there you go. Burks is just a placeholder. And, I mean, right now, so the decision on an extension, his fifth year for him would be a year from now. Right now, I'd say there's about a 1% chance that the Titans consider paying him. Like it's very low. But could he play well enough, do enough this year as the fourth receiver to start shifting that in his favor?
I don't
have
think
to do a lot
to pick up the fifth-year option.
It's a big number.
I'd be shocked by that.
It's a big number, but first of all, if somebody gets hurt, he's got to play great.
Yeah.
He's got to play far beyond what he's played. So of course, but we'll even have the opportunity.
Right. That's a big question. I think what excites me the most about the receiving corps is the different skill sets that are there. Like Ridley, not that this is the only thing these guys can do, but like Ridley being able to go deep and take the top off the defense, as Randy Moss used to say. Like his ability to run, I think really excites me. You got Tyler Boyd working in the middle of the field, and then Hopkins can do a little bit of everything, but his intermediate game, contested catches, really, really good. So like the different way that you can layer those receivers and the different skill sets that they bring to the table, those three in particular, I think really excite me. We can get into the Burks and NWI stuff and where they fit in, and certainly those guys are going to get on the field. But those three, like the different strengths that they have, should provide you with an ability to attack defenses in different ways. And look, A.J. Brown was an elite receiver and could do everything, right? Like A.J. Brown could go deep. A.J. Brown could take the ball after the catch and run. Like he could do all those things. I will say, like, Ridley is more of a burner than A.J. Brown was, right? Like, not that A.J. Brown couldn't run, but Ridley's got that speed where, the deep ball is a big part of his game. Going deep and challenging the defense vertically is a big part of his game. And I think the Titans have needed that the last couple of years. Like, they've just not really had – like, Hopkins can go deep and Hopkins can go up and get the ball, but Hopkins is not going to outrun most people going deep. So I'm excited to see, like, what the addition of Ridley and his ability to do that opens up for the rest of the offense too.
Yeah, and I don't think you can have too much speed. I'm sure any team could say that, but I think with Will Levis's strength, I would want more vertical shots from him from the Titans. I'd want to lean into him and his ability to throw the deep ball as much as possible. So definitely you would hope that Ridley would be able to do that. And look, Burks, I mean, it was like twice last year, but he did.
Was it twice?
He did. What's that?
Was it twice?
He had the big one. Yeah, I think later in the year he had like a 50-yarder, right?
Okay.
Something like 45-yarder. But yeah, he had the 75-yarder against the Chargers. No, maybe he's a guy who comes in here and there, and that's kind of his role. I think he should be able to be better with contested catches, but also he can run.
Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Lee. Lee, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning, guys. First time caller into y'all's show. Really enjoy listening to it. Guys, I just got to say, man, just listening to y'all talk about our freaking draft pick wide receivers, and it just makes me want to throw up driving my car. The fact that we have wasted now Corey Davis and Traylon Burks, literally top 15 receivers, or maybe 16 for Burks. But it's just like, my God. You're talking about a fourth receiver in his fourth year, and this guy's a first-round draft pick? Like, give me a break, man. I'm just so tired. It's just like, why do we even draft first-rounders for the Titans? Just trade them out, man. Get second and third-rounders moving forward. But it's just so frustrating, dude, with the Titans in our first-round selections and how far it set this team back. It's ridiculous.
Yep, thanks for the call, Lee. Appreciate it. I mean,
there are worse first-round picks than Burks in recent years.
Yeah, there are. That's not. I don't know if it's a reassuring thought or not, but there are.
Yeah. Corey Davis was a fine player. He was a reach. Burks was obviously a disastrous decision. A.J. Brown's second-round pick, to Lee's point. Take him in the second round. But the second-round pick of A.J. Brown, what he turned into, kind of offset Corey Davis. Right? Corey Davis was like maybe a second-round, more maybe like a third-round receiver. Yeah. But you did get a great player out of A.J. Brown.
You did. Look. First off,
then you traded him.
Just because you got to also keep in mind, like, this is a different regime now. So
yes,
keep your first round picks. Keep drafting first round. But like, this has been a big problem, right? Like, it's a big part of why the Titans are where they are with their roster. Their drafting has been very bad the last 4 or 5 years, and you've got to find a way to hit on more picks than they have. And we'll see. Like I thought last year's class was encouraging. A lot of that's going to come down to how good or not good Will Levis is. We'll see. And then, this year they've taken 2 guys that I think have the potential to be really good in Latham and Sweat. We'll see if it all works out that way. But, look, if you're going to get to a place where you're competing for championships, the draft has to be kind of the lifeblood of the way you do it, right? Like it's hard to do that in free agency in the NFL. You got to find a way to do it in the draft.
Has to be. Yeah. And look, the Titans, whenever they open their new stadium, was that 2027?
Yep.
The quality of that team, the last draft class, this draft class, the next one, that's going to have so much to say about it. And we don't know yet. Skoronski could be an all-pro. Guard.
Yeah.
Latham's got to be really good. Sweat could be a great player. But if not, then there's only so much you can do in free agency.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts on the Titans. What are your expectations for this wide receiver core for the Tennessee Titans heading into next season? Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. I got some tickets to give away. A pair of tickets to see Bill Burr at Bridgestone Arena this Friday night. Be caller 5, 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. Caller 5 will win a pair of tickets to see Bill Burr at Bridgestone Arena this Friday night.
Might see me, too. I'll be in there laughing uncontrollably.
Yeah, you will. This is going to be the summer of Rexrode. Bill Burr concert, or Bill Burr, I don't know if concert's what you call it, but Bill Burr, he'll be there Friday night. A lot of concerts this summer, including Creed.
Rexrode.
He'll be there for that.
So I saw
we got to really work on doing the program live from the Creed concert.
When is the Creed concert? Is that at Ascend? If it's at Ascend,
there's two
I actually
different ones,
will
I
go.
think. I think there's one at Bridgestone and one at Ascend, from what I was told.
There's
two different opportunities.
I would actually go to the Ascend show because I'll go to anything at that place just to hang out there.
Yeah.
I'll go there and get belligerent and boo.
I won't let you do that. You're not going to attack a friend of our show out in public.
By the way, my wife just actually sent me a thing the other day. Apparently, he's getting a divorce, so sorry.
I saw that.
I apologize.
I was sent something similar yesterday.
What's that?
I was sent something similar yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, hope everything's okay.
Our guy.
Wish all the best in your life, personal life,
Yep.
and your decision to stop playing or making music.
Josh from Lebanon on the text line says, being a Cowboys fan, I would put the Titans receiving core on the same page with the Cowboys. CD is elite, but after that, really nobody stands out. The Titans have some good receivers, but how much tread is left on the tires? This is from Josh in Lebanon on the text line. That's an interesting one. And I do think there is the question, like, yes, Hopkins answered a bunch of questions last year. Could he stay healthy? He was coming off the PED stuff. He was coming off the injuries, and he stayed healthy and finished with a really good year for the Titans, especially when you consider everything that was wrong around him last year. The fact that he played as well as he did was pretty outstanding. So can he follow that up again this year? Or, as he gets another year older, does he start to slow down a little bit? Do the injuries start to creep in? I'm interested to see how that goes. The Ridley part of this, you paid big money for Ridley. He's 29 years old. As you often bring up, the athletic prime of your career, 28 to 32.
That's right.
Like, he should be fresh. He should be ready to go. Like, Tyler Boyd, I don't think you're going to ask Tyler Boyd to do a ton. Like, Tyler Boyd, to me, is not coming into this offense and catching 90 passes like he has in the past. Like, if you got 60, 65, somewhere in that neighborhood catches out of him, you'd probably be okay with that if you're the Titans. But, like, how those three together, like, working in concert, what does that look like? And I will say this, I brought this up before. Hopkins doing what he did last year with basically no help at wide receiver. What does that mean now that you do have Ridley and you do have Boyd? How does that free him up from a matchup perspective? What could that mean for him in terms of his individual production? Because you can look at it a couple of different ways. You could say, well, there's more players to throw the ball to, which means Hopkins is going to get it less. Or you could say, well, yeah, there's more players to throw the ball to, and he may get targeted a little bit less, but the matchup should be really good, and maybe he can do more with the targets that he gets. I don't know. Like, it just depends on the way you view it, I guess.
Yeah, I'd guess that his production would go down some. They just leaned on him so heavily last year, and I think some of those easy, quick throws are going to go to Boyd, and again, I mean, Hopkins can work any part of the field.
Yep.
He's really, really strong with the intermediate stuff, and he's still going to have a lot of production. But then I think Ridley, it's going to be – I would imagine there'd be some lost production, but a better offense as a result. Indy Ben's mad at me that I said they have a top 10 receiving core. That he says they're third in the division.
So Houston's one.
I don't think he's talking about the Jags.
Indy's two.
Let's see. Now, they did add A.D. Mitchell, who I like him. And I like Downs. Downs is good last year. Yeah. You got Alec Pierce. You got Pittman back. So I think I'd give the Titans the edge, but I think it's definitely the Colts have gotten better there with Downs and now Mitchell.
Yep.
Those are good additions that they definitely needed to do. But sorry, Indy Ben, third. You're third in the division. Hate to tell you, buddy.
I got a texter that says 25 touchdowns from wide receivers this season if the offensive line protects Levis. I think you probably sign up for that right now. That's a pretty good amount.
That's a pretty good number. Yeah. How many does NWI get of those?
I don't know.
He's got to get at least 3 or 4.
That's the thing.
Are they selling them short?
Like, I'm not kidding. people keep talking about Burks being wide receiver 4. What has worked? What has he done at this point to surpass NWI? Like, we keep talking about Burks being on the field more than NWI, and that's never happened before. Like, he's never been on the field more than NWI. So I get it. It's a different staff, and the talent would suggest that he should be on the field more than NWI. But I'm just saying he has not been to this point. So is that just going to change this year because we think it should? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. I know that Vrabel loved NWI. I think any coaching staff is going to like NWI. But will they love him like Vrabel loved him? I don't know.
Probably not.
So that's. I think it's a great test of where Burks is.
I would ask you this: if you were forced to bet right now, who would end up playing more snaps for the Titans this year, NWI or Treylon Burks? Like, I would probably lean NWI. That's just me.
I'd bet Burks. I wouldn't bet a lot of money as long as we're talking about a low.
Yeah,
like I'd bet $5.
Yeah,
but I'd lean Burks. But you're right; it's close. Certainly, you could see it playing out that NWI is just more reliable and he gets more snaps and he blocks better or whatever. I mean, does this?
Well, also Burks can't stay healthy, right?
That's true too. So, yeah, there's where and get more snaps than NWI. I think. And you
also what happens if one of those top 3 get hurt like that? Kuharski's talked about this too with the depth at wide receiver. That's something that they've needed to improve. Hopkins was healthy the whole time last year. Hopefully he can do that again. But what if he doesn't? Like, what happens if one of those guys goes down? Then Burks, NWI, whoever is going to be forced into a higher role then. And maybe going back to your Burks conversation, maybe that's when you take advantage of it, right? Like, I do think there is something to, and I think I'm a little bit more out on Burks than you are. I think there's something to the idea of there's really not a ton of pressure on him to be the guy this year. There is a pressure on him to prove that you need to stay in the league, which is a different type of pressure than he's dealt with the last couple of years. So how does he respond to that? I can't remember who said, maybe it was Corey Curtis who said this with us a couple of weeks ago, but I think you're going to find out a lot about what he's made of this year. Like, the writing is on the wall if you're him if things don't change, then I'm gone. I'm not going to be here the year after this. So this has got to be a wake-up call. Maybe is not the right word, but if you're him, you have to know that you've got to start to put something together this year or you're not going to be here the year after that.
For sure. This brings to mind something. I think D-May said this, and I have a real problem with it. So let me attack D-Mace.
We'll do that.
He said it. Okay, we can do that on the other side.
We'll do that coming up
Great.
next. Some retribution for Rexrode against D-Mace.
Sparty versus Sparty. Very
coming up
sad.
next.
Very
Robby
sad.
and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in. Final segment of the day. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. Joe, you're taking a shot at D-Mace to close out the show here in retribution for what he did to you yesterday.
If I'm wrong about this, well, I don't feel so bad because he thought that I was saying that J.C. Latham needs to play guard. But I'm pretty sure I heard D-Mace recently say that throughout his career, Traylon Burks will be compared to A.J. Brown. And I must say, no one's talking about A.J. Brown anymore with this dude. I mean, obviously he's going to be tied to him because of the move on draft night, but people would like him to be like Hollywood Brown at this point. I mean, think of like an average receiver A.J. Like,
I'd take him to be Yancey Thigpen.
There you go. Good old Yancey Thigpen, who, by the way, dropped this pass. You were too young to remember. He dropped this total easy touchdown at the end of the year against the Packers, which robbed the Lions of the division. It's classic Lions football. Job, Yancey.
For the brand.
Yeah. Yeah, like, we're done with A.J. Brown stuff with Traylon Burks. Like you said, it's trying to stay in the league. So hopefully I'm right about that, but if not, I don't feel too bad about it.
That's good.
On that topic real quick, apparently Jared's saying this whole right tackle thing, like Conklin was his example. I mean, Conklin came out of college at 6'6", like 308. That could be – he was hoping to be a left tackle. He came here. He became a right tackle. I mean, Taylor Lewan is not like – all left tackles are not built like Taylor Lewan.
No.
Like, he was a special case of a very long, very athletic left tackle. There are others that are much bigger and meatier. It's just that Latham – oh, never mind. You know, whatever. He's a tackle. Fully embrace it.
What's
he's
he built
tackle.
like?
He's built like a guard, but he's a tackle. But again, he's 6'6". I went through the measurements. He's got the length and all that stuff. It's just that he's a tank.
Didn't Brugler say he'd be a guard? Some teams reject him as a guard.
Well, he did say that
Let's speak this into existence.
He did. He said that some teams project him as a guard. I don't think the Titans are looking at that at all. I don't think they should. Never said they
he's
should.
Going to play left tackle. Ray Carthon, the night they drafted him, said he's starting at left tackle. So
yeah,
I would hope
he's
going to
be their left tackle.
What happens?
Yeah, at some point, we're probably going to be talking about right tackle this year as the biggest question. But we'll see. We'll see if Latham can be good.
A lot of
he'll be a tackle.
Anytime we bring
He's
up
a tackle,
I feel bad. Like anytime we bring up NWI, the text line just goes nuts. NWI is inevitable on the text line. It's not his fault. He's been playing in a role that he shouldn't be playing in the last 2 years. He's done the only thing you can do. Go out there and make the most of it.
Hey man, why do you?
Not his fault. The Titans couldn't find better wide receivers.
Exactly, and plus, like he actually has made a lot of good plays.
He has.
It doesn't matter what he does. Like someone had in fact, Ryan from Chicago sent me this the other day. He DM'd me. Someone put together a highlight tape of NWI. He made a lot of plays. He scored some touchdowns.
Yeah,
he's caught some passes. He's had production. Why do you hate him? Like, NWI deserves respect. Mason Kinsey gets brought up for no reason ever. But NWI has produced on a football field on Sundays. Give him some respect.
Mike from Clarksville says, good morning. I hear so much about the wide receivers now, and deservingly so. I'm excited, of course, but can you talk about the running backs a little with the loss of Henry and the addition of Pollard, how he and Spears will work in the offense, and the effectiveness they may have together with the new wide receivers and offensive line additions. The running back room, it's going to be a different way of doing things. Like I think for the foreseeable future, gone are the days of one running back being the bell cow. I think you're going to see a much more collaborative approach at the running back position next season. I actually like it though. Like I like Pollard. I don't love Pollard. I like Pollard, and I like Spears a lot based on what he did in year one. So that combo together, I think, has a chance to be pretty effective. Hopefully Pollard is fully recovered from the injury issues that you could see he was still pretty clearly dealing with last year.
But I think later last year he started to look more like himself.
He did.
Yeah. I think it's a good combo. It's an interchangeable combo, which is a good thing to have. Any down, either guy. It's not any kind of a tell, and that was one of the fair criticisms of the Derrick Henry offense, his predictability, and just the fact that he just was not going to be out there in certain situations. If either of these backs is playing well, either of them, if the Titans are down late in the game and they're basically in a 2-minute offense, either of them could be on the field. Derrick Henry was not going to be on the field. So there's still a guy who was one of your biggest game breakers and your best all-around football player was not on the field at a critical moment because it doesn't fit his skill set. So that's done. But to answer the question on how good they'll be, are the Titans going to block? The receivers, are the Titans going to block? Will Levis, are the Titans going to block? I hate to be a broken record, but like the Goff signing really is like one of the, like, please see it for what it is. Good job for him. Also, man, is it good to have a right tackle, by the way, who is their best football player, and a bunch of other good linemen.
Who do you think ends up with more carries, Pollard or Spears this year? Pollard had 252 last year with the Cowboys for 1,000 yards. He was at 4 yards a carry, which is not great. You'd like to see that go up. But again, you could see he was pretty clearly coming off an injury. Who do you think ends up with more carries this year, Pollard or Spears?
That's a good question. That's a tough one. That's a really tough one. It's almost like the Burks NWI thing, which I think is really close. But I would lean toward Burks. I think Burks will respond to some extent. I guess I'll go Spears. I definitely liked him as a rookie. He's younger.
I'm going Pollard.
Yeah, there's not a blatantly wrong answer there.
Pollard has been a good player, right? Like he's not Derrick Henry. Nobody would say that. But he's been a good player. And we've seen it with, when you're dealing with knee stuff and all that. Sometimes it takes 2 years to fully get over it. He's only 27, right? So it's not like he's ancient by any stretch of the imagination.
He had a broken leg, though, right?
Broken leg, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you start to recover from things like that, sometimes, especially at that position, maybe it just takes you a while. Like the hope is he gets back to what he was a couple years ago where, he was averaging, let's see here, the number was right in front of me, and now it's disappeared on Pro Football Focus. It was 5.2 a carry. Like, you take that right now. 5.2 a carry, sign me up for. If you could get back to 5, I'd take that. Like, the drop-off from 5.2 to 4 last year was pretty stark for him.
Yeah, and I do think that first half of the season it was 3-something, so, again, he got better. But, yeah, he's a good player. He basically started taking carries away from Zeke, even though Zeke was getting paid at the time.
Yeah.
Because it was a guy like you had to get the ball in his hands. So I'm glad to see some people speaking out to defend NWI. It's good to see that not all of this fan base qualifies as an NWI hater.
It's kind of like
good job, folks.
I'd like to get people in the middle of you. Like there's the NWI hater, and then there's the president of the fan club that you are.
That's right. So
where's the button?
What
NWI. Do you think this is the year that we get him back on the show? Like, we tried it once.
Has the restraining order run out yet? I don't know.
We tried it once, and I don't know if it's fair to say it didn't go well, but I don't know that he enjoyed it.
I think it went fine.
Bring it back.
And then when I tried to explain the whole situation, I just fumbled all over myself, and I can't blame him for being like, okay. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. I would love to know what the conversation was from him when he hung up the phone.
Ryan from Chicago and Michelle Perry were the ones who were stalking him because they lived in the same apartment complex. By the way, did you guys see that I did give you a picture of my shirt from the van? I think it's a nice shirt. Oh, Jared's blowing me up. Right tackles. Okay, Jared. Yes. Okay, right tackles are heavy. He's giving me Sewell, Onwenu, and Latham. Yeah, okay. Again, you use Conklin as an example. It's 308. Jordan Mailata is 340. Right tackles are bigger, thicker, and have broader shoulders and wider butts, like Evan Neal. All right, Jared.
Wider butts.
I don't think this is true as a rule. I don't think this is something that needs to happen. It was probably a good thing to say several years ago about the NFL.
615-737-1025, our phone number. That's going to do it for us today. We covered a lot of ground on the program today.
We did, and I got to distance myself from Stilly. Never put me with him again on a take.
We'll be back tomorrow. By the way, got Diana Rossini coming up later this week on Thursday with Charles Robinson. So what a day that's going to be.
Yeah, NFL Insiders Day.
Chasing Big Joe up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3.